My name is Rob Von Rob, and I'm in Dugbear. Do not forget our names.
I had a dream my life would be so different from this hell I'm living.
As we said before, this is another sort of off-the-cuff of Sibling Rivalry. We are actually going to get a set on the next episode, so we're going to save it for that one. But, like I said, it's Les Miserables, and we must talk about it because...
Les Miserables.
because everybody's talking about it, pretty much. Jean Valjean is on the run from Javert, trying to track him down all across the French Revolution, while also trying to help Anne Hathaway and her child.
A French Revolution.
A French Revolution. Okay, that's
Revolution.
true. Well, was that during the French Revolution?
No, the French Revolution happened years earlier. This is a student rebellion.
Oh,
you know what? The musical never bothers to explain it. Why
it doesn't
the hell
go into
should
much
we?
detail. The first thing we have to talk about, I think it's almost unfair if we don't, is what our background with the musical Les Miserables is.
Yeah.
I know you want to start that.
I'm just gonna say up front, take anything I say with a grain of salt, cause I don't think I was the intended audience for this film. I didn't like Les Miserables as a musical to begin with. To me, it is like the biggest, sort of most bombastic 80s cheese that you can find, and that's fine. But if I'm gonna go for 80s cheese, my guilty pleasure is Phantom. I admit that is a big giant chunk of stinky 80s cheese. But that's my guilty pleasure.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's my guilty pleasure.
My background, I didn't grow up with Les Mis. I actually found it pretty late. I found it through the concert DVDs, and I really liked it. I enjoyed it a lot. However, even I have to admit, there's problems with it because the book is about a few Bibles thick, and you have a musical that, granted, has an intermission, but you're constantly, literally the first 10 minutes, it's like this one guy goes from a bum on the street to being mayor. No transition, he's just mayor. There's a little girl that goes to being a grown woman. No transition, it just happens.
And the
That's
movie
how much
makes
they had to fit.
no attempt to fix any of that. There is no sense of the passage of time in this film. Like, years pass just by magic. It just says, 10 years later, boom. And, like, there's a scene at the end where... This was one of my problems. Hugh Jackman, like, it's supposed to be like 20 years have passed, and Hugh Jackman doesn't age at all. He ends up looking younger. Until the last 10 minutes of the film when it doesn't give you any sense of the passage of time, and suddenly he's got gray hair and looks ancient, and I'm like, what the...
The singing in this movie, which a lot of people, I could just tell you right now, are not going to like. And the way I put it is that they're very much singing the words, not the music. This is not meant to sound pretty. I think maybe 2 or 3 people actually get pretty voices in this.
I love the
rest
concept
not
of a
so
musical
much.
that's not meant to sound good.
I made the mistake of buying the soundtrack, which was like $12, before seeing this movie. Huge mistake!
Not the price of a ticket,
Huge!
actually.
If you are going to see this movie to hear the pretty music, the beautiful music, see the show. Do not see this to hear the pretty music. This is meant to be dramatic, it's meant to be grisly, it's meant to be sort of a different kind of experience it was been done with musicals before, and a lot of people, I can tell you right now, will not like that. I guess the best way I can describe it is that if you could get through Gene Wilder singing in Willy Wonka, if you could hear him singing If You Want to View Paradise, and you still got the emotional impact of that and could see past his terrible singing voice, you'll probably get through this okay.
Yeah, but the difference is he only sang once in that movie. How many times does Russell Crowe sing in this?
Well, okay. We will talk about He Who Must Not Be Named Yet, eventually. I would make the argument that, much like the musical, there is much wrong with this film, but I think the stuff that's good is very good, very genuine, and kind of a new way of doing some things that surprisingly paid off.
I don't disagree. The decision to film the musical live is brilliant. And a number of the songs where they basically just turn the camera on and let the actors, because I don't think there's any real singers in this movie, but let the actors sing it from beginning to end is really brilliant. And a lot of the cutting and even some of the shaky cam in moments is also really brilliant. Like, more than anything, like, I hate saying this, I wish this was how Phantom was filmed. As I said, that was my guilty pleasure, and I thought that film was a train wreck. And part of it is, like, the thing with musicals I think a lot of directors don't understand is you have to have some sense of kinetic energy. That if you're going to film a musical, you know, you've got music, you've got dancing. To me, the camera should be moving in such a way that it really manages to capture that. And in a number of scenes it does. The problem is there's a number of scenes where it completely is actually totally distracting. So it doesn't work 100%. In my opinion, it works only 50% of the time, but that 50% is really, really, really good. But that other 50% is really, really, really obnoxious. So, but I give them props for just experimenting, because, like, the director is onto something. This is how it should be done. It just needed a steadier hand. It's like, this is a good first attempt. It's like, good try. It's like you tried something new and it's kind of halfway there, and maybe future directors can master this system way better.
Now, if you heard Susan Boyle sing the song, you would say, oh wow, that's pretty, that's beautiful and stuff. If you hear Anne Hathaway, just the music, you're gonna go, ugh, what is up with that? But when you see it in the context of the film and the performance, it is so heartbreaking. And it's unbelievable.
I'm actually completely okay with that.
I thought it worked surprisingly well.
Film is a visual medium and it requires acting. Stage is different, and it drives me nuts when people are just like, why don't you just film the stage music? Because you're making a damn movie, and the movie works best when it's actually working as a movie. It actually fails when it's just kind of like shooting a musical, or it just looks like a bad stage production where it's just like there's this incoherent battle at the end of the film that's just shot just haphazardly. It's like they just turned a camera on and you have random angles, no sense of space, nothing, and it's just like, how could you build a set like this and not take advantage of that?
As he pointed out, the musical, though I love it, has a ton of problems, like I said, with the pacing, and this is probably the toughest. It's one of the toughest books to turn to a musical. It's one of the toughest musicals to turn to a movie. For what we got, I think it's pretty damn impressive that this turned out anywhere near as good as it did.
But it doesn't work as a complete film.
I think you could make that argument. I think it works better than people are giving it.
It works great as a series of scenes. Like, when I think back, it was like, that was a good scene, that was a good scene, but by the end of the movie, I'm just like, wow, that was just so jumbled. Like, some scenes are shot so expertly and other scenes are just so incoherent. It's like taking a look at the Sistine Chapel and having, like, all of Michelangelo's works together next to Walt Disney. And it's just like, either one of them is good in their own moments, but you can't put the two together, and you get so many long, gorgeous takes and then shaky cam bits, and there's no in-between. There's no attempt to bridge the gap. The entire film, you have one of two patterns. You have a long, drawn-out take on an actor's face, which alone, I'm like, that's fine. Or you have these gritty scenes of shaky cam and just random jumbled images, which in their own sort of scenes are fine. It's when you put the two together without any sort of real establishing shots or linking scenes that the cinematography just bombs. Because when you walk out of it, you're just like, you have trouble just kind of remembering things because it was so jumbled.
They should have made it two films. Les Miserables as a stage musical barely works as a story because they have to cram so much but you
doesn't work at all.
No. But you have an intermission. You have an intermission. With this, they literally have to cram so much and still have emotional impact to a point where you're right, there's not many establishing shots.
It's confusing as hell. I know.
Suddenly, the guy when he's gonna sing Empty Chairs, Empty Tables, beautiful song, but he's just there. You don't see him walking to the place. You don't see him looking at the visor. He's just there. He wakes up and he's there.
Yeah, and
it has to be shot that way because it's so damn much, and I think it should have been two films. If Hobbit can get 3, why couldn't this get 2?
Well, and this is why I told Doug when we walked out, I was like, do you realize that there were hardly any establishing shots, hardly any linking shots where you just have a tracking shot, or any shot where you have established the characters in their location first before they start doing something. Even an establishing shot of the city. He goes to Paris at one point and it just says outside the Paris walls. We don't get a shot of the city, we get nothing. There was no sense of space or passage of time in this movie.
Oh no, there's space. It's just everyone's this close.
Yeah, it's everyone's this close. Or my favorite, you want to see this movie, and I know you're just like, oh, I adore this cinematography. I adore this cinematography. Watch, you know what? Watch this. Tilt the camera like this. Like, here's a shot. Now I'm going to be singing. See this, like, ceiling up here? That's all you're looking at because that's the way the shot is set up. This wall and like
what you have set up right now is brilliant, and you should get an Oscar for it.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he's got nominated for Golden Globes.
You can't even set up that shot right.
But there's so many random shots like that, and I'm just
No,
like,
I would make
who
some...
frames a shot?
No, I would make some arguments for that, and he did do the same thing in King's Speech and John Adams. He did it quite
He does,
often.
but they're more restrained, and they're not set against these much longer takes. They form a more coherent visual narrative.
Well,
There's breaks in between. It all flows. This feels like a series of jump cuts. It's like, you know what it is? It's the difference. You have like a narrative that flows like a river. Like visually, it flows like a river. Everything seems to fit. This to me feels like a fireworks show. It's a series of jump cuts, like boom, Dutch angle, boom, long take, boom, here's a shot of a ceiling, boom, this guy is, like my other favorite trick was, he has like, here, scoot over. He has an actor over here looking this way, and I'm just like, what are you looking at? There's all this negative space over here. It just doesn't visually make
First of all,
sense to me.
he did that in the other films, and I would argue a little bit for it, because whenever those scenes pop up, the character is often confessing something or going through something very difficult or has to reveal a secret. And I think the shot visually does show that, because it is off-kilter, it is awkward, it is strange. I think it's very much like a photograph. A lot of photography does that too.
But then your shot after that doesn't match that. Then I will look
It's not focusing on that person, it's focusing on the person in that shot, though.
So basically, you just have two random shots back to back.
It's not just random.
There's no visual language to it.
If you look at photography and the way much of it is being shot, especially
the eye
portraits
wants
like out
to
in the
travel
city.
in certain directions.
But that's
and
what
when you
makes
put
it
somebody-
uncomfortable. That's what makes it awkward.
But there
That's
were
what makes
scenes-
it so
yeah,
much
but
more uncomfortable.
It's also what makes it distracting. And there were scenes where I don't think the point was to really be that uncomfortable. It just seemed like we've just decided to put a shot here. There's one shot where it's in a
Hugh Jackman is
church.
talking to the boy, and it's just...
It's shot Dutch angled, an extreme Dutch angle. Literally the entire
No, but
frame
it's
is
far away, like they're just standing each other. All
Yeah.
the Dutch angles in this movie I thought were actually very good. Like if you compare
half
it to
and half,
if
but-
you compare it to John Adams and stuff before, he actually shows much more restraint with the Dutch angles. But there is this one shot where they're just standing in a room like this, looking at each other, and it's completely
and it lasts only 3
2
seconds,
seconds.
and then
Yeah.
we go back to completely and like
That was
literally-
very distracting.
Yeah, there was one that scene crops up, and Doug and I simultaneously, not even looking at each other, just went, "What are you looking at?"
And I would even argue that one of the other elements to sort of make it bigger, because I understand the tight shots and that it's supposed to be ugly and everything, but sort of like what you said during the battles and stuff, you did need a few more big sweeping shots. There's one or two when it's just showing the city, or when Javert's looking out over the city.
The intimacy
but not
is brilliant.
much.
The intimacy is absolutely brilliant, and the way he set up a number of those shots. Anytime he had to make an epic fail, it either relied on CGI and really poorly done CGI.
Yeah,
like
it's not
just
that good.
it's almost a joke. I've seen video games like from 1998 with better CGI. Or the camera just moves around to such a degree that you just can't tell what you're looking at. And again, like John Adams, I think works because you can take breaks. You can watch these in little 1-hour snippets. I don't think people understand, like, particularly this is my problem with Peter Jackson's The Hobbit. You are, for all intents and purposes, being held hostage by a director for 2 hours, 45 minutes. So you have to tell a story in a way that you're not going to completely alienate your audience. And that was my problem. It's like, you can get away with it in 1 hour, but at 2 hours, 45 minutes, when you make it that jumbled and incoherent... Another great scene was, The Master of the House. There's a bit there where there is some insanely clever things going on with the way he's pickpocketing, everybody, but the camera is just like, it's jumbling everywhere, and I'm trying to laugh at some of these jokes, and I can't see half of what's going on. It's like shooting a Jackie Chan routine Michael Bay style. It's like, why would you do that? You want to see the choreography, you want to see these slick moves, and the camera just has no sense of where it wants to be pointing at to basically convey the information it needs to convey. And yet in some scenes it does it flawlessly. Like the Anne Hathaway song is fantastic. Some of the Hugh Jackman songs, and there were some clever things even with Russell Crowe. I thought the idea of him walking on the edge
That was clever.
of that building was ingenious. So it's just such a weird mishmash of just
With that
really
said,
good and random.
should we bring up Ye Who We Now Must Name?
Okay, I'm only going to say this. I have no professional music background, So I will defer to the people who do. You are vocally trained. What did you think?
Let me say this. Nobody in this film sings pretty. So I am not going to attack Russell Crowe on the fact that his voice sounds terrible, because everybody's does. That's fine. I am going to attack him for the same reason I attack him in every other film he's ever done, in that he doesn't act, and it comes out in his singing. You have Hugh Jackman there say, you know, he just got through pulling a ship in, and he's getting his freedom. Yes, it means I'm free. You have Russell Crowe there, follow to the left your itinerary, this badge will show to the day you die, you're dangerous, man. I mean, it's literally...
Actually, yeah, that's pretty much carbon copy of what I heard.
Yeah, I mean, and
that was...
It's
Actually, that may have been better than some of what I heard.
Now, prisoner 24601, your time is up and your parole's begun. You know what that means.
It's phenomenal how much this guy doesn't give a damn about acting. Or let me put it this way, if he does, it never comes through in the performance. I think I saw him in Master and Commander is the only film I ever saw where I'm still convinced that was his evil brother, because he was like unbelievably good in that. But every other film he's ever been in, I think he subscribes to that Daniel Craig way of acting, where if I act like I don't care, that'll get everyone else caring. And it doesn't. That gets other people not caring.
Here's the problem, though. I never got that out of the character. I read arguments online that was like, well, but that's the character. I'm like, really? Because I would think if you're going to spend your life chasing somebody down for stealing a loaf of bread, that you would better damn well have some obsessive compulsive passion behind that, and that I did not get from this character.
The song...
Like, I got more passion out of Tommy Lee Jones playing essentially the same character in The Fugitive than I did out of this. Like, for me, this is the equivalent of, like, and against Hugh Jackman, who, I remember the musical, and I don't think he's hitting some of those notes. I'm not
no.
I'm not going to say his singing was perfect either, but his acting, you know, you could see, much like Anne Hathaway, the acting showed real passion. When you put the two together, for me it was like putting, you know, it'd be like doing Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and instead of William Shatner and Ricardo Montalban, you cast William Shatner and... like,
Stephen Wright.
Yeah, Stephen Wright. Like, you're just like, there's just no passion there. It's just very dead. Or, you know, like William Hurt or somebody. It's like, you want somebody there who's just going to be like, ugh. It's just like, I've been hunting you all my life. And when they realize their life is a lie and a waste and that they've been, you know...
Yeah, that's supposed to be a huge moment, and you're just going, wrap it up, guy. We can't stand
I honestly, when I saw the decision he made, I was like, wow, I mean, I know the original story, so I just would have been like, okay. Like, I really didn't elicit much of an emotion.
And there have been so many good Javerts. There have been plenty of bad ones, too, but there's been so many good ones and so many good actors out there who can't sing anyway, so this would have been great. And I'm just shocked that they still went with him, because I've never seen him actually emote yet. Like I say, with the exception of Master and Commander.
Honestly, his best acting scenes, and this is a problem I have with the movie, is that particularly, I think Hugh Jackman acts well. I think his acting's better than his singing in this, and that may be because he's just been doing film so much now. He used to be Broadway, but the most authentic scenes they had were the very few lines of dialogue they had. Did you notice that? The two that came out of this film, I think, completely unscathed was, I think, Anne Hathaway, and I would argue Samantha Barks, who played the other love interest in the third story.
Who is from Les Miserables. You know, she's done the musical version of this, like, tons of times. I mean, she's got this down like the back of her hand, but she also manages... And Colm Wilkinson does this too, who's also from the original, is that they both manage to sing their part, but they get the style as well. They know, okay, I have to speak. This is more about the performance that is making it sound pretty, and they adjust, and they do very well.
And it's those moments where the film is the best, when honestly it's the long takes, where all the gritty little shaky cam, it's, when I think of all the greatest moments in the film that I can remember, it's Anne Hathaway singing, it's Samantha Barks singing, it's a Hugh Jackman song where the image is just on him. Like, anytime you deviated from that pattern, I don't really remember much of anything. I just remember just flashes of stuff happening.
And that's what he does best, that's what the director does best. And there are a few shots of, say, like, the mountainside or anything, but they're very, very
Wait a
fast.
second.
and very
Okay, so
quick.
you just said earlier, like, oh, I adore that. Oh, and he did that in John Adams. I love that. But now you're just like, well, that is what he does best. These long takes where it's just in the face. What?
No, I think it's great. I think he has a good mix, but but I'll agree. And that is, I think, what is mostly needed for Les Miserables, but at the same time, there is a battle, and I agree, you need the broad, wide shots, which there's one or two, but for something this long...
I was
for
so
something-
hyped from the opening, because, like, I'm like, ooh.
Yeah,
this
like, that
is
was a
real.
very impressive shot.
Yeah, and then, like, I never saw a shot like that again in the entire
No,
film.
there's
like,
one or two, but they're just... It's like that one that's supposed to tide you over for the rest. You're like, here's France. Okay, you're never gonna see this shot again. Now we're gonna be really tight on everybody. That's what it is. It's on the people. It's supposed to be mostly on the people. I would argue that yes, it did need a few more.
But it's
of
also
the establishing shots and the far out shots.
30-year-long tale set against, you know, a revolution in Paris, and like. You need an epic touch. And some of it was, after a while, my eyes just glazed over. It was just so many random things just thrown at you in jump cuts. There was not... I don't think there was a fade out or a fade in an entire damn movie. This is why there's a visual language to film, and you just can't do that. And I think the film would have seemed faster had you actually added 7 minutes of extra footage of just establishing shots or wider shots or things to give you a sense of the passage of time and the flow of time.
I would have been for that. I think it would have made it stronger. I think if they did expand this to put in what it really needed and got rid of Russell Crowe, I think we could have had like one of the biggest holy shit fuck movies we've ever had. And as is, in my opinion, especially for what we could have had, and especially for what they had to bring to the screen, I still think we got a good film. Like that's pretty damn impressive. But I'll acknowledge there are problems too, and I'll also acknowledge that people who enjoy the musical for how pretty it sounds, for how nice it sounds, this is not the film for you. This is much more the gritty, this is much more the dramatic.
I think you got a really noble experiment with a lot of brilliant moments, but a failed experiment. I think if you're looking at this as you have to make a coherent film, the film was incoherent. It just was a jumbled mess with spectacularly brilliant moments and great ideas. And you'll never be able to take that away from him. But it was like, as a finished movie, like, I honestly thought this was worse than The Hobbit. Like, just for being, like, just sort of incomprehensible. Like, I kind of wish that Peter Jackson would have directed some of these scenes. I was like, man, I want a sweeping, you know, a sweeping shot over the city of Paris or something, or, you know, better handling of some of these, you know, like Dutch angle shots.
Now, let me ask you, but before we sign out here, because you were not a fan of the Broadway musical.
I got a better appreciation of the musical when he did it right.
Okay.
Like, more than I ever had, you know, watching the stage version or listening to the soundtrack. When the intimate moments when he did it right was way more affecting than anything else I've seen in Les Miserables when it comes to the musical. So that's my best compliment that I can make, because, you know, I still don't like the musical, because I'm just like, how do you take... Like, that's my problem. It's such a long story. It's like taking The Lord of the Rings. It's like, we're going to do a 2-hour musical. It just... If you don't know anything about Les Miserables, or anything about the revolution, the student revolution in Paris is talking about, I don't know what the hell you're going to think of this, because I'd be completely lost. The movie explains nothing. It cuts to characters, to revolutionary characters. It mentions a couple of historical facts, gives you no context. You know, time passes randomly. Like, there was like an old couple near us. I don't know if you heard them, but they were constantly like, who are these? What's going on?
Oh, yeah, I was going to kick their seats. Yeah, but you were probably trying to listen to it just like, yeah, what, did you follow what was going on there?
But no, but it's a legitimate point. I'm just like, it's like you have to know the musical going into this or the story to get it. And again, I was not the audience for this film. I don't really like the original story that much. Victor Hugo, to me, is one of those authors that he has great ideas for stories, but if you try to sit and read them, and I am a fan of literature, I could read Shakespeare all day, I can't do Victor Hugo. Like, I get like halfway through it and I'm just like, I'm done. Like, I'm out. You know, Hunchback of Notre Dame, great story. I can't even, so... Take it with a grain of salt. I don't think I was the person this film was made for. But as a movie, I think it's just kind of messy, but with great moments.
Take that for what it's worth. I'm Doug Walker.
I'm
90210! And we'll see you next time on Sibling Rivalry!
Can you hear the people sing?
I can't hear anything after I sung that.